There goes the first season of LMES, completed in Spa-Francorchamps, a few historical months synonymous with the rebirth of 1,000-kilometer races in Europe, within the framework of a championship which breathed its first breaths. All the great names of the specialty were out to meet there, teams and drivers of international reputation. The launch of LMES was without doubt a true success right from the first months of its existence. I think at the same time there's a real clientele in terms of drivers for these events and in terms of spectators. There'll be 4 events this year. Chose the circuits according to those which had the greatest history in endurance racing. Monza, the Nurburgring in Germany, Silverstone in the UK, and Spa. One of the keys to this success was a great reward for the teams that were classified the best in each category. There are 4 categories. The first 2 of each of the categories at the end of the season will be selected for the Le Mans 24 Hours in 2005. Each year there are between 75 and 100 candidatures. There are only 50 cars at the start. It's evident that the participation in the series takes on extra interest when you can automatically qualify for the 24 hours. The queen of these categories is LMP1, prototypes built for endurance racing from the ground up. With their carbon frame, they have the most powerful engines of the field, a maximum of 6 liters of cubic capacity, normally aspirated, with power output up to 700 horsepower. In LMP2, the same philosophy with limitations of cubic capacity, 4 liters in normally aspirated configuration, a lower weight, but if the wheels and brakes are also smaller, the small prototypes are nimbler but less powerful. They can, however, mix with the big boys in some circumstances. In GTS, on the other hand, one speaks about mass production limited cars adapted to racing, road-ready GT cars with improved safety features and prepared engines. Well, finally, the GT category, production cars adapted to racing. In recent years, still Porsche have been present in force, but the TVRs and Ferrari Modenas have given them a run for their money. The first confrontation of the season at Monza in Italy, and already Audi set the stage. They occupy the top places on the starting grid. Only the official Zytek team managed to rise up among the front runners. Classified better than the GTS, the superb Celine of Team Vitaphone precedes the Ferraris. On the impetus of its recent victory in GT, the car of the German driver Michael Bartels, Uwe Alten and Franz Conrad will start from pole position in their category. Team Passengers in pole position in GT, with their first place in LMP2, Team Belmondo have engaged a Courage C65.
The difficult part of sports car racing is that you have to be very versatile. You have to improvise quite a lot from different conditions on the weather. The car never stays the same under such a long period of time. You know, you have to consider the brake wear and look after the car, you know, and of course you have to drive it more or less qualifying speed all the time through the traffic and so on, which is maybe the most difficult part in the race.
We find ourselves in the starters tower just a few moments from the start of the race. During warm-up session this morning, it was the Zytek number 22 of Wallace, Brabham and Johansson who put in the best time. Here we're on board the car of Boschu, the Ferrari number 86 in second position. Pack's now on the starting grid and the lights turn to green. They're off for 173 laps of racing, with the whole shot being taken by the Audi number 8, which approaches the first chicane. Behind him, number 88, Jamie Davies, who was also passed by the Zytek, number 22, driven by Andy Wallace. An impressive view of the start in the midst of the GT and LMP2, running around 15th in the classification. Back to the head of the pack with the Audis of the Team Velox already driving in formation, and the Zytek of Wallace lying in ambush just behind. It's the Dallara Judd of Roll Center Racing that takes the 4th place in front of the Audi number 5 of Team Go and the Zytek driven by Nicola Minassian. Well, up among the leaders of the race, things are changing. It's the number 8, driven by Alain McNeish, who takes command out of sight of the cameras. A close-up on the pretenders to the podium of the LMP2 category. For the moment, it's Tampolini, number 28, who has the advantage, but he'll have to stop in the pits on numerous occasions during this race. The leaders are always confronted with getting around the tail enders. That's always one of the great difficulties of this type of race, and they have to stay vigilant from the first to the last minute. Car number 8 is in the lead ahead of the Zytek number 22 and car number 88. The first pit stops start happening after around 45 minutes. It's the Belmondo stable that opens the ball. He must have a serious problem. Well, the first refueling with the Courage number 17 of Team Pescarolo with Emmanuel Collard at the wheel, and who will stay at the wheel for a second stint. McNeish is still in command of the race. He's been putting in a devilish pace for the rest of the pack since he managed to get away from the Zytek of Wallace, and he's also overtaking a second time the cars in the other categories. Well, the Zytek here, number 22, driven for the moment by Wallace, is now just 2.5 seconds from the leading Audis that have been putting in the best laps in the race. We really have to salute the performance of this modest prototype vis-a-vis the armada of Audis. A stop in the pits for Audi number 5 of Ronaldo Capello, which might just be able to find a solution to its brake problems. Like all the leaders now, the Fressenger Porsche heads into the pits. Romain Dumas takes the relay from Stéphane Ortelli. Meantime, there's a drama on the track, a spectacular crash for the Ferrari 360 Modena in the GT category. Apparently the car's been hit from behind. We can't see the other car involved in this collision unless the Ferrari hit the wall of the pit straight. In any case, the driver has left his car and seems not to be suffering from any injuries. He leaves for the shelter of the pit lane well, while the track marshals intervene on the vehicle. In a tactical sense, it's a dream occasion for those on the track to head for the pits and avoid refueling during normal race conditions, which can be very penalizing. At the time of the second start, in fact, it's the LMP2 prototypes and GTs that are in the leading ranks of the race. That won't last for long because the leaders will be forging their way within just a few minutes. Misfortune for the Lola Judd of the American team Intersport, which is driving without its rear hood. Whatever happened, interesting to find out. We can see in this replay what took place just a few seconds before this image. And breaking into the chicane after the pit straight, it's the Porsche number 76 of Joel Camatias, Franco Groppi and Gianpaolo Tecni that misses its braking and smashes at full pace into the back of the Lola number 32. An impressive image, but no one was injured in this action. Porsche driver, who was at the origin of the incident, immediately excused himself to the victim. Now things are back to order on the track. We find the number 88, the Audi driven by Johnny Herbert, who took over from Janie Davies, a car which thus occupies a leading position in the race to the detriment of Alec McNeish. Well, there's a car in trouble on the chicane at the end of the start. Finish straight, a prototype spins just at a time when the leaders are approaching this part of the track. The other end of the track, more pit stops are in the wings. That's the Courage of Pescarolo, number 17, that of the Zytek, number 3 of Team Creation. Return to the battle, which is rearing its head in the lead between the two Audis of the team Velox from the UK. We should remember that Johnny Herbert is in the best place, but he only precedes Alain McNeish by a few car lengths. In the traffic, it's very easy to make an error, but nothing disturbs the close combat between the two drivers. McNeish carries off his attack and seizes the lead without dealing any killer blows. Perfectly orchestrated maneuver, favored by the presence of slower competitors on the track there. Well, very different strategy for crew number 8, which is preparing to take the opposite course. It remains to be seen if this tactic will pay at the end of the 173 laps of this event. Difficult to say as we approach only the last third of the race. It's Pierre Caffer who takes the wheel and sets out again onto the track. Caffer comes back out of the pits in front of Johnny Herbert. He thus manages to preserve his advantage in the general classification. He'll now have to resist the return of the former Formula One driver.
It's unfortunate with the pace car because we had 25-second lead, and that would be very comfortable, but we had to come back 10 seconds and then to take an advantage. But that's racing. That's what the series is about.
And as if to confirm the fears of McNeish, here's Johnny Herbert in direct contact with Pierre Caffer. The British driver carries out an incredible attack outside the trajectory and even overtakes a tail ender on the grass before seizing the command of the race. But nothing is final because the two cars are neck and neck. Caffer on the outside, and Herbert who takes the advantage. And here, coming up now, we see the standings on this event with 121 laps covered until now. There are 3 Audis occupying the places on the podium. In the 10th place, it's the Labo Ferrari that occupies the top of the GTS classification, in front of the Vitaphone Celine, which is now 1 lap back. Finally, the 13th position, the leader of GT, Team Fressenger, with its Porsche driven by Otelli and Dumas. Change of drivers here for the Audi number 5 of Team Go, which is occupying 3rd place at the moment. Tom Christensen leaves the wheel to the Japanese driver Ara. There's a problem here for the Zytek of Nicholas Manassian. Number 3, thick smoke coming from the left rear side of the car. A new stop in the pits also for Zytek, number 22, running now in the neighborhood of 6th place. Stefan Johansson, who's at the wheel, he seems to have some problems. All this as the rain starts to make its appearance on certain parts of the circuit. This could be favorable for the Pescarola number 17, which is running 4th in general classification. Question is, rain tires or slicks? This is the question the teams have to ask themselves while the rain settles in and is intensifying in the park at Monza. The Audi camp, in any case, seem to have made their choice already. A little more than 11 seconds to regain. The Scot takes all the risks to reach his goal. And he's come into contact with the Dallara of Roll Center Racing, who's gone off in a spin. 5 laps from the finish. It's a hard blow for the Celine, number 59, which is lined up finally in the ditch. That means retirement for Uwe Altzen, Franz Conrad, and Michael Bartels. We're now in the last lap of the race for the front runners. This time McNeish has managed to get back up there, and he seems able to threaten Johnny Herbert. The 2 men are determined to offer this victory to their team at a few weeks from the Le Mans 24-hour race. It's Johnny Herbert who cuts across the finish line as the winner at the end of 5 hours and 5 minutes of racing at an average of 193 kilometers per hour. McNeish will console himself with the best lap at 1 minute 49.045 seconds. Victory under the belt after a tough battle for Johnny Herbert, who appreciates this situation 3 weeks out from the 24-hour of Le Mans.
It was an important one because we've seen how quick the Zytek has been going. Been very, second pole position. It was very quick in the race, very difficult to pass for us. So I think in other races, Nurburgring, for example, I think it's going to be a big fight and very difficult to beat them. So these points are very important towards that championship. But it's good morale for the guys and for going into Le Mans.
Second meeting of the season at the Nurburgring, and after the victory of the Audi of Team Go on the circuit of Monza 1 month back, The second round of the calendar seemed like a revenge for the other teams. In pole position, it's the Zytek number 3 of Nicholas Manassian. Alongside him, Pierre Caffer takes the wheel of number 8. Then there's the Audi 88 driven by Johnny Herbert, and alongside him, Seiji Ara takes the first in at the wheel of number 5, as we just saw on the screen. In 5th place, the C60 Courage of the Pescarolo stable.
Of course, it's a special preparation for the Nurburgring because it's a slow track, so we change quite a lot the car. But that's a normal job. You know, the car was very well after Le Mans, and it's no problem with it.
On the starting line, the green light is now imminent. A start which already pits the Zytek number 3 against both Audi R8s of the team Velox. Pierre Caffer tries to slip inside while Johnny Herbert remains outside to approach the first turn. Nicholas Manassian has to keep a check on his rearview mirrors to choose the best trajectory and keep his adversaries from overtaking. And during this time, it's the second Audi, the number 8, that sees its third place threatened by the return of the Pescarolo of Ayari, who has already passed the number 5 of Team Go. Manassian's in front of Herbert, Caffer, Ayari and Ara here for the first tussle for the leading positions as we come towards the end of the first lap at a sprint pace. Today, this is one of the peculiarities of endurance racing. Johnny Herbert putting a lot of pressure on Manassian. Herbert tries to pass on the outside. And meantime, Caffer slips inside. Manassian's the meat in the sandwich. There's nothing he can do to resist this double attack. In just a few seconds, he slipped from first to third place. But he's not letting go of those two Audis. He's able to keep up with the pace. Staying hot on their heels. As we focus on the fight now for fourth place between the Pescarolo number 17 and the Audi number 5. Solhei Ayari still precedes Ara. The Japanese driver tries an attack in the first braking zone of the circuit and doesn't manage to pass. The C60 Courage also has a chassis which enables it to resist the Audis in the windy parts of the circuit. Close up here on the battle which has been taking place since the start in GTS, whereas we could expect the leaders are neck and neck. In first place, the Celine of Uwe Altzen is grappling with the Ferrari 550 Pro Drive of Team Labre. There are less than 2 seconds separating the two cars. Here we're on board in the GTS category on the Viper number 60 of Team Force One. It's the young Frenchman Bruno Besson at the wheel. The lookout on the track, there's a spin for number 86, the Ferrari, driven by Pedro Lamy, and he's going to have to get back into the direction of the race. He was overtaking the Celine of the Team Vitaphone in this replay. Apparently the driver of the Ferrari didn't see what was going on beside him. Into the pits now for the first refueling. It's the Pilbeam number 99, engaged by Team Pier for Marc Rostan and Pierre Bruno. Absent in Monza. Here's the British Lister team that carried off a lot of wins with its Storm in GT before turning to prototypes. The veteran John Nielsen's at the wheel. Retirement with the steering problem for the Chrysler Viper number 60. No question of throwing in the towel, on the other hand, for the Nicholas Manassian, who is always right up the exhaust of Johnny Herbert. The French driver is in the slipstream of the Audi, and he moves out on braking there. Zytek seems to be able to take back its second place from the Audi number 8. Indeed, he actually manages to do so. Even if Herbert tries to benefit from the re-acceleration now to come back, he's not able to do it. The Zytek is on the line. On the screen now, it's the mg-lola number 7 occupying 5th place. That's the car with Mike Newton, Miguel Ramos and Thomas Erdos. The car of rather old design, managing to slip into the top 6 thanks to its reliability. Is the Courage prepared by the French South region in for refueling. The Audi has a problem on the track. It's the car of Team Go. Seiji Ara lost the control of his machine at the end of the pit straight. Let's take a look at the replay and what happened. It looks like the driver error from the Japanese driver who lost the Audi in violent braking. Meantime, refueling finished for Caffer. Remains to be seen if the German will be able to preserve his first place. Precisely the order in the lead is again modified by a pit stop for the Audi number 88 of Johnny Herbert. He remains at the wheel, but he's chosen to fit rain tires right now. A stop in the pits for the brilliant Courage, number 13, who put on a great show throughout the first hours in category LMP2. It even played the spoiled sport in the midst of cars from the top category, with at the wheel the French driver Jean-Marc Gounon. Johnny Herbert thus sets out again at the wheel of the R8 for his third consecutive stint. Well, he manages to preserve his third place and takes back out to the track right on the heels of the Zytek of Manassian. And thanks to better adapted tires, he gobbles down the young Marseille-based driver in one bite. On the beating rain, the car of Team Creation is still wearing slicks. The TWR team from Salisbury bring their car into the pits. Technical problem pushing back the British team even further in general classification. During this time, things are going very well for the Ferrari of Team Larber, which takes the lead in LMGTS. The man at the lead, Pierre Caffer, has just fallen into a trap at the end of the pit straight. He's stuck here in the gravel trap. Let's take a closer look at what pushed him to fault. In fact, quite simply, he missed the braking, but taking into account the traffic that surrounded him, he preferred not to block up his brakes, and he went straight off. Unfortunately, he didn't slow down enough to avoid the gravel. Takes back to the race after losing a lap. Meantime, there are worried faces at Audi, all the more so as Manassian doesn't release his grip on the new leader. An attempt for Manassian, who this time has to remain behind the Audi. Perhaps he'll be able to again slip along the rails at the end of the straight, but no. He's too far back to profit from the slipstream of his adversary, but he finally finds a little mouse hole to slip through and pass into the lead. But the Audi is more powerful, and Herbert takes back what was his in re-acceleration. Again, a tight scrape between the two. During this time, Caffer's trying to catch back up his lost time, and look out, he hits a tail ender in LMP2. All's well for him in the end, but that could have finished very badly. Manassian's in trouble meantime. It seems his rear left tire is blown out. He misses his braking in that first turn. He's back in the gravel in the safety zone. Difficult to imagine he might be able to get out with any hassles from here. He'll have to wait for the track marshals, and he'll lose a lot of time there. Well, in the pits with the Pescarolo number 17 for refueling with a driver change, it's Eric Hellery who takes over from Sohei Ayari. Both Audis are in the pits simultaneously. Pierre Caffer sets out again first. He'll be taking the lead of the race ahead of Johnny Herbert in the GT category. It's a superb battle that's been taking place for some time now between the leading cars, that of the Certec Motorsport with Adam Jones and Sascha Masson, and the Porsche Frissinger of Stefano Telli and Emmanuel Collard. Here we're on board the number 85 of the Frenchman. Meantime, in GT category, the new leader of the race passes the Porsche number 80 of Xavier Pompidou and Marino Franchitti. Well, an impressive position here for Lucchini of the Palmer stable. Unfortunately, as we can see, the driver was unscathed there. The situation at the head of the race is tilted in favor of the Audis. And while Johnny Herbert, we can see here, taking a small pause, the Courage number 26 is out with a new mechanical problem. There's less than a third of the race left to run, and the Pescarolo number 17, driven by Eric Hellery, is hanging in there. He's still among the top 6 overall. A new mishap for the roll center Dallara, again victim to the first braking error. This time the driver runs up against the low wall which girdles the track. Fortunately, the machine doesn't suffer from this shock, and he sets out again to defend his 6th position overall. Well, the explanation of these problems on the track, it's the arrival of a new downpour on Nurburgring. It's a new possibility for in-depth modification of the hierarchy of this race. Definitely bad luck seems to be hanging over Capello and Ara, who've been already victims to major problems with brakes at Monza in the company of Tom Christensen. In this replay, he's victim to a driver error by the Porsche number 71. Another problem on the track for the Pescarolo, whose Sohei Ayara had taken the wheel at the time of the last stint. Frenchman's blocked in the gravel and calls the track marshals to be able to get back into the race. Additional proof that the track conditions are delicate for everyone in the GT category. Here on board the Ferrari Modena of Team JMB. Here the number 61, which is in a fight for the 3rd place of the GTS category, with the Celine number 52 of Gabbiani and Bennett, the 572 Maranello, which made its debuts in competition at the end of the last season. It'll be without any doubt the car to beat in months to come. On your screens right now, the Dallara Judd number 6, currently in 6th place. An excellent performance from this private car. And we return now to the leaders for the last minutes of these 1,000 kilometers of Nürburgring. The number 8 still has a very tight grip on the reins of this event, with 1 lap's advance over their sister car. It's a last-ditch struggle for McNeish at the wheel, and Pierre Caffer in the pits, who led this round of the LMES since the halfway point. A new double-header for Audi, with the number 88 of Jamie Davies and Johnny Herbert coming across the line in second place.
For sure, especially after Le Mans, it was important that we had a good result. I thought that at one point it was gone, but like endurance racing, you never know until the finish what the result is going to be. But I'm very, very happy. Today, to be honest, Pierre Caffer is the hero, not me.
LMES 2004 lives its third and second last round of the season, and not just anywhere. On the mythical circuit of Silverstone, which had not seen an international endurance race for almost 10 years. The Zytek is again in pole position. It will also be a good idea to follow the evolution of the internal fight between the Audi R8s of the Team Velox, because these two cars are playing for the title and are back almost to a tie before the start of the race. It seems that the final crowning glory of the first season of LMES will escape at least one of them, but it remains to be seen if it'll be the number 88 or number 8 which will take the title. Unless another British driver in love with this circuit comes to play the spoil sport.
You have many fast corners, Beckett's, Maggots, Chapel. Is very exciting, and then obviously towards the end of the lap you have slow, tricky, technical sections. So it's one of those circuits which has sort of more or less every corner that you can find in the world. Although, having said that, it's very flat because it used to be an airfield.
The track ready for takeoff for this LMES group. Once again, around 40 cars at the start of this second last round. French manufacturer Courage will observe the fight between their two cars from the LMP2. In GTS this time we've got to keep a close eye on the duel between the Celine 59 and Ferrari 86 for domination of the category. We're also looking forward to the major battle that will oppose the Porsches of the GT category and the fastest Ferrari in the category, that of the Team JMB competition. Here now the start of this 1,000 kilometers of Silverstone, given with a whole shot for the Zytek. Manages to preserve the upper hand over the Audis. 3 Audis and 3 Zyteks mixed ideally in the first 6 places. Prepare us for an explosive situation in the first laps of this race. The pace is very constant between number 22 and number 88. They're young drivers behind the wheel, and in the case of the Zytek, they're not playing for the title, but would like to dazzle the field by checkmating the Audis, which have been the queens of endurance for several years. First overtaking maneuver coming up, the Audi number 5 taking on the Zytek of the C Team Jota. It drops back to 5th position. Battles also raging between the Lister Storm and the Dallara of Roll Center Racing, which dispute a place in the top 10. For the moment, it's the Italians who hold the advantage, but the British driver hasn't had the final word. In another fight that's held in GTS between the Celine of the Vitaphone stables and the Ferrari of Laval competition. In the LMP2 category, the domination of the Courage number 13 is total, with Jean-Marc Gounod, who took the start, widening the gap on the following pack. We're back up with the race leaders here, where both Audis have been outdistanced by the Zytek number 22, driven by Robbie Kerr. But now the two Germans are running in formation, and they're at a more constant pace than the leader. It's now the number 8 that's in second place, with Pierre Caffer ahead of number 88 of Jamie Davies. Very relaxed in the Velox pits here. Johnny Herbert patiently waiting to take his turn at the wheel, while his teammate joins a group of tail-enders, among which is the C65 Courage of the Belmondo stable. And the Ferrari Modena number 70 already at the head of the GT class. As for both the Audi Velox, they're attacking the car which took third best time in qualifying in LMP2. It's the Pilbeam MP91 with the Judd engine of Team K2. But what's happening in the pits of Porsche Fressinger? The car remains stationary long seconds. The mechanics are intervening on the front end on a steering problem. Here in the image is the car that currently occupies the third place in LMGTS classification. It's the Celine of Graham Nash stable, ahead of the Ferrari 575 Maranello of Team Baron Connor. Well, it's been an underhanded trick for the race leader. The car 22 has been in the pits for a long time, just like car 26 in LMP2. Two of the fastest prototypes of their category that have lost their advantage. Here again's Robbie Kerr at the wheel of the Zytek, which is back up behind Caffer. They attack superbly, taking back second place. Well, the style of this British driver is absolutely superb. Meantime, a problem for number 3, which we can see has been hit with a stop-and-go penalty. The race marshals have sanctioned him for the absence of an extinguisher at the time of refueling. The Lister Storm's in trouble on the track. It's a spin which could have finished very badly, but the Lister gets back into the race. It had been qualified 8th in qualifying. During this time, the Celine number 59 loses the lead of the GTS class. Car of the team Vitaphone is victim to a puncture. That spin makes it possible for the Ferrari number 86 to take the command of this category. Obliged to pass again into the pits, the official Zytek is back out for a comeback, but they've lost all hopes of victory. It'll also be the case in its category for the Porsche 996 of the team Certec, which had started from pole position in GT. The Zytek is now a long way back from the men in the lead. In particular, they were victim to a bingle with the tail ender during overtaking at one point. A great performance here for the green car of Nasamax, which in Silverstone carries out its best classification of the season. Romain Dumas, Robbie Sterling and Werner Luckberger placed their car 5th in general. Quick look at the GT category, where the lead of the race has been occupied since the second hour by the Ferrari Modena of Stefan Dowdy and Roman Rusinov. We find the Zytek of Team Jota still in 6th position at the end of the 4th hour of racing, thanks to its new tyre combination using French tyres at Silverstone. Its level has further progressed. Stop in the pits for number 88, the Audi, driven by Johnny Herbert, for refueling both the car and the driver. A change of front bodywork after a contact with a tail ender. Close up on the car, which is currently in 6th position. It's the Lola MG7 of Erdos, Newton and Ramos. It'll be their best result this season. There's a tangle in the top 10. It's the Zytek number 69, which has been pushed by the Lister, and the Dallara of Roll Center just managed to avoid it. The two cars are stuck in the gravel, but this could have finished much worse. They'll both be able to get back out onto the track. New stop in the pits, the last apparently for Alan McNeish, who can take his time. His lead is sufficient to avoid any eagerness. Whereas here the second runner in the event, Seiji Ara and Ronaldo Capello, who only took the 2nd position at the time of the non-programmed stop of Johnny Herbert, who had managed to change his bonnet. Stop for a few moments to look at the Lola Caterpillar of the Team Taurus, which currently is running in 26th place, a very exotic prototype in LMP1, since it's powered by a diesel engine, certainly far from the leaders. 21 laps precisely, but it uses a very unusual technology in motorsport and deserves our curiosity. And with only 50 laps to go, there's been no disturbance by rain at any point during this race. On LMP2, they don't need that to go into battle. Here, an overtaking attempt between the Tampolini number 28 and the Lucchini 31. Two cars are not in the same race, since they're respectively running 32nd and 18th on the field. Still leader in GT category, the Russian Roman Rusinov, who debuted on a European level in the Renault Formula Championship. The leader during this time has just approached his last lap. It's Alan McNeish in the lead after a stint of 3.5 hours. And the Scotsman's now within reach of his second victory in LMES this year in the company of his German teammate Pierre Caffer. McNeish passes victoriously under the checkered flag and will greet his team after this superb demonstration of mastery here. In second place, Ronaldo Capello and Seiji Ara at the wheel of the Audi number 5. The Ferrari of Labour competition remains out of reach in GTS, and it's thus a third victory for its drivers Pedro Lamy, Christophe Boschu and Steve Zakia, who are virtual champions.
It was wonderful, even if our setup was not so good because our engineer was not there. But now it's a third victory and the title, so it's really wonderful.
Obviously, being British, it's important to win at home in the UK, but also for the team as well. They're only based 10 kilometres from Silverstone circuit. Audi UK are based here, and so I think for everybody it was very, very special.
Very important, and all the more so as this allows McNeish and Caffer to again take the initiative in the championship before the outcome of the season at Spa-Francorchamps. The famous Raidillon de l'Eau Rouge will thus be the justice of the peace for this first season in the history of the LMES. That's perhaps the Zytek, which will be the referee of this fratricidal fight between the Audi Velox. Will start in pole position in front of both R8s of the British team, free of any race instructions. Confrontation which marks this season will thus take place right up to the very end.
We drive free. I mean, our sister car has still a chance to win the championship, and you never know what happened in the race. And so, yeah, we're fighting together. And I mean, you saw the last races. We had some pretty good fights together.
The ultimate explanation will only be more beautiful, all the more so as nothing has been won when it comes to the Zytek, which has been getting faster all the time since these past events, which will perhaps be able this time to dominate the race till the checkered flag. The cars are under the starter's orders and await the green light. It's going to be very hot in the Raidillon de l'Eau Rouge. The start's given, and watch out for the attack of the Audis on the Zytek. Caffer attacks Manassian right from the very first meters. His operation could succeed, but finally it's the Zytek that remains in the first place. Impressive spin there for the Panots, number 11, whereas the leader of the race is already approaching the high part of the Spa circuit. The Audis are committed to a duel. It's perhaps a little too virile. And here the two cars touch. Fortunately, more of a fright than anything else, but that makes it possible for the number 5 of Dindo Capello to slip through into first place, because the Zytek number 3 has already sunk into the depths of the field. They're victim to a puncture at this point. For a replay of the mishap of the Panots number 11 on board this time for some high emotion. There's still a bitter fight for 4th and 6th places. The mg-lola number 7 is this time under the threat of the Pescarolo driven by Ayari. under Zytek, number 69, engaged by the Team Jota. Behind him, the courage of Cochet and Paul Belmondo follows. Capello, winner of this year's 24-hour of Le Mans, is in the lead of the event. The LMP1 have already turned on their headlights because they'll soon be catching up with the tail enders, and this is how they signal their presence to them. While the Zytek number 3 returns to the pits to change tires, the Audi number 5 hangs onto its position and sets the pace for the remainder of the group. Ronaldo Capello is running ahead of Pierre Caffer, and the two cars are very close. So much so indeed that the German manages to pass the Italian and slips into first position. It's a downpour that caused the loss of the C60 Courage of the Team Pescarolo. Sohei Ayari, its pilot, is extracted without trouble. He's fortunately unharmed, but the car will not be able to set out again, of course. The race is stopped for a first time. The second stop, the Nasamax number 14, has run its first stint. It's classified in the top 6. Here's the Zytek number 3 pushing to try to make up for its lost time after the unfortunate puncture on the first corner. We're on board the Ferrari number 70, which is currently trying to remain in the race for the title in GT category. For the other competitors, things aren't going so well. The Palmer number 31 has to come into the pits. It's lost a lot of time. The Zytek 69 is currently 7th, but it's already carried out its second refueling, whereas the majority of its adversaries have not yet come in for the second time. Well, there's a car on fire coming into the pits. It's one of the Audis in the Velox stable. A very dangerous situation. It's number 8, driven by Caffer, who chose to come into the pits, fortunately met by the track fireman and his mechanics with their extinguishers. More of a fright than anything else in the end. They avoided the worst. Very cool-headed, in fact, on behalf of the driver and the safety team at the circuit. Nevertheless, the retirement of the former race leader. Race is again interrupted. Still at a sprint pace, the Zytek number 3 is among the fastest cars on the track, lapping below the 2-minute 10 bar. It's at this moment that the rain makes its appearance here at Spa. Johnny Herbert precipitates for the pits. The Team Velox had envisaged this downpour, and that'll make it possible for the British team to face the conditions with the right tires and good aerodynamic adjustments. After 30 laps, the number 88 is ahead of the car from the Team Go, and the Zytek of the Jota stable. Exceptional 4th place for the LMP2, engaged by the Courage competition team, following like a shadow, followed by the prototype of the Team Belmondo. Quite as exceptional, the 6th overall place of the Ferrari 550 of Laber competition, which is in fact the first GTS in general classification. Back into the pits for slick tires for everyone now. The rain has stopped and the trajectories are drying. It'll also be the case for number 5 after this refueling and change of driver. Seiji Ara takes over from Dindo Capello. There's yet again a problem on the track with a badly damaged car. It's the Delara of Roll Center Racing, which has had a major accident. Taking a look at the slow motion replay, we can see the driver lost control at the top of the Rédillon, and his car violently hit the rail at full speed. The driver was obviously stunned by the incredible impact. Race back under control, restarted, but no change in GTS. The Ferrari Laber number 86 is still running first. Problems still for the Zytek of Team Jota. This time it's a spin that comes to slow down its progression. Meanwhile, the Nasamax is still in top 5 as the halfway point of the race approaches. Well, here's the leader of the GT category, already author of the pole position in that category. It's Stefan Ortelli, who's at the wheel of the car. And in addition, the men of the Team Fressinger are in a very nice 9th place overall. As for the Nasamax, it was 4th before this incident. The car is destroyed. And this being the case, the team will not be able to set out again. It causes a new interruption to the event. The Celine number 59 profits from this to bow out due to a technical problem. Still an excellent occasion to make itself conspicuous for the official Courage LMP2, which is in a battle with the C65 of Team Belmondo for the leadership of its category. It's also running 5th in the general classification. Unfortunately, the other Courage is again victim of fate in view of the finishing line. This time they can set out again on the track. But in LMP2, it's the car number 36 of Werner Racing, which occupies 3rd place, even if on your screens it appears behind the other representatives of this category. In GTS, also since the withdrawal of the Celine number 59, it's a Maranello Ferrari, which is in third position, the number 87 of Team Laber with Goerslav, Enger and Pergel. As for the Zytek of Nicolas Manassian, it's filling its objectives since the Frenchman passed the MG-Lola number 7. Now he's in the third place of classification. One can imagine what his final result could have been had he not lost more than a lap from the very start of the race because of his tire blowout. In GT, number 93 of the Certex stables makes its entry onto the virtual podium. The car, driven by the British driver Adam Jones and Sasha Masson, concludes the event in the second place in its category. In the third place, the Porsche number 80 of the Sebar stable now occupies the third place, which makes it possible for this team to be classified number 1 in the GT Championship standings. They've already approached the last meters to be run for the leading car, the Audi number 88, the Velox stable, which will offer the brand its 50th victory with a car of this model. Jamie Davies behind the wheel is jubilant with the idea of this historical performance. The Audi number 5 comes in to supplement this triumph and thus to offer another double header to the German manufacturer.
It's a great day. It's nice to have a championship. I haven't won a championship since 1987 in Formula 3. I think it was actually here in Spa that I won that championship, so it's quite fitting that it's been Spa again.
A great season for Johnny Herbert and Audi, who conclude this last race of the season with a fantastic performance.
We have a good series behind us with 4 beautiful races, and I think it's a promotion for sports car racing. Audi will stay with the sports cars. We have committed to that, and we are happy about it, and we are sure that sports cars will have a good future.
Well, I think it's very good that the European competitors have a chance to compete under Le Mans rules, and it's done a very good job this year and a lot of competition.